Fish on First has partnered with About the Fans to launch a merchandise collection. Rep the FOF logo and more Marlins-inspired apparel. Find it all at aboutthefans.com. Enter coupon code FOF10 at checkout to get 10% off your order. FOF10 for a 10% discount.
This is Griffin Conan.
This is Xavier Edwards.
This is Liam Hicks.
This is Dave Myers, and you're watching Fish on First live.
Welcome to the edition of FOF Live, presented by About the Fans. As always, you can check out their brand new merchandise collection about FOF, all our stuff, hats, t-shirts, everything you can get there from About the Fans, and use the code FOF10 at checkout for 10% off your order. As you can see here, this is going to be a great stream. Be the 4-game series. Yes, 4 games between the Marlins and the Phillies. I am your host, Daniel. We have Eli, Nate. Kevin will come back later for the press box report, and it wouldn't be a Phillies stream without him. The one, the only, the unofficial FOF Phillies correspondent. You can follow his Substack for Can We Fix It? It is Mr. Alex Carr. Alex,
nothing unofficial about it. Nothing unofficial about it. I am proud to be under the FOF umbrella. I'm good, everyone. I'm psyched to be here. Very, very, very excited, as always, to talk about 2 of my favorite teams.
Yeah, both these teams are both coming off a sweep. I was just asking Eli before the stream, when was the last time both teams faced each other coming off a sweep? I want to get both of you guys' thoughts between the Phillies sweep and the Marlins sweep. First off, Eli, talk to us about this Marlins sweep against the Nats.
Yeah, quickly, I think I have an answer to your trivia question. Was it 20? Oh, so close. They came really close in the middle of the 2023 season when the Phillies were coming off a sweep and the Marlins had won like 3 out of 4 against the Cardinals. It was close enough during that. That was right before the All-Star break 2 years ago that we had both the vibes being high in both of these cities at the same time. And since then, not very many occasions like that in Miami, except for this past weekend against the Nats. Just a really solid all-around series in a way that each game was close at the end and each game was different, but you saw them flexing different muscles to take 3 in a row against the Nats. In that first game, they were up at 8-2, and then they made it way too uncomfortably close at the end. But the fact that the offense exploded, that was tied for their highest run output in a game all season long, obviously encouraging from that aspect. In the second game, the Jansen Junk game, he threw people off his scent when he had that shaky outing against Pittsburgh earlier in the road trip. But this guy's good. This guy's really legit. People roll their eyes because of the name.
He threw people off his scent.
Look at Miami. Like Jansen Junk is. Well, we could talk about it more about what his role is moving forward, because the Marlins have a vacant rotation spot, and if this was his latest audition for that spot, it was awesome. It was one of the longest scoreless relief outings in Marlins history to go 5 2/3 of zeros, and then in the 9th inning was Calvin Fauché in the bullpen that made it. The rest of the bullpen that made it uncomfortably close. Who was it? Was it Bender that was in that game before Fauché? It was like the combination of both of those guys that really made that dicey, along with the defense. But Junk himself was awesome in the middle course of that to make the difference ultimately. Then that final game, the bullpen totally wiped out, and they ended up unbelievable. You just skip right to the end and see that Freddie Tarnuk saved the game, a guy who had not pitched with the Marlins at all until this game, and he ends up coming in the highest leverage situation and putting things away. So I think that partially speaks to how rough it is with the Nats. I think overall, I would say the series says a little bit more about how off kilter the Nats are. We could even get into it. The comments from Davey Martinez in the middle game of that series, where he said the blame, it's not the coach's fault. Sometimes you have to point to the players. That was really out of line in a way that, understandably, the team did not respond the next day. He made those comments on Saturday, and then on Sunday, they pretty much lay an egg on Mackenzie Gore day. Gore was fine, and then he just had no help whatsoever from the rest of that team. So the Marlins bumped into the Nats at the perfect time, and that's how you get a very rare series sweep. They had not swept any team at all this year until now, and they got some help from a team that is struggling right now.
And that's Phillies legend Freddie Tarnok to you, by the way. So just wanted to check that really quickly.
I want to go to Nate. really quickly, because I don't even know the last time the Marlins had double-digit hits in every single game. The Marlins combined for 39 hits in these last 3 games. I know maybe there was a time where they may have gotten 39 hits in a month or so. But Nate, talk to us about those 39 hits and the offense that the Marlins produced against the Nets.
Well, I think first I want to shout out Kevin, who actually predicted a sweep last series. I think he was the only one of all the super subs, everyone on our panel that did it. So Kevin, shout out to you. I don't know what you saw, but you had the right vision. Yeah, the offense last year. They've been really inconsistent, definitely the past 2 weeks. Like we said, that one blow-up game on Saturday in Tampa, but they really just strung together a lot of hits. Still, they only put up, I think, 4 and 3, so not really the production you want to have with runners in scoring position. But I think you got to start with Audistin Ramirez on Friday, hitting out 2, really just finally elevating the ball again. He wasn't – I think we might have over-exaggerated his ground ball percentage last stream, but definitely pitched it out a little bit. I think he had 2 hits, at least 1 yesterday. So good to see from him, especially with, how he slowed down a little bit. Really, really encouraging. And Dane Myers, man, he had multi-hit games every game this series, 3 on Friday and 3 yesterday. That guy's he's really on a roll, and it's really good to see that he's actually getting consistent playing time. He's deserved it for a while. We've really been sifting at our nets for Dane. He's been coming through on the bases, at the plate, and definitely on defense too. He has a cannon for a right arm. So those 2 guys in particular were awesome, and it just trickled down the entire order. Even Eric Weideman had a pretty good day, even though I was slandering him a stream ago as well. But yeah, it was a really, really good performance from the entire offense. Needed it, especially with inconsistent. Well, I wouldn't say going into it looked inconsistent on the pitching side, but like Eli said, Jansen Jung continued to deliver. He's been awesome. Erie was great as well too, and Eddie even before that rain delay. So just a really good series all around. And first sweep all year, and I don't even remember the last time they got one in 2024. So things are looking up against a division rival who had their number last year.
Mm-hmm. And going there, let's go another division rival. I want to go ahead and talk a little bit about the Phillies with Alex Carr, and primarily I want to talk about Zach Wheeler with his performance yesterday and how great he's been playing, and also the news that coming out that he mentioned he wants to retire in 2027. I believe he'll be 37 at the time. What can you tell us a little more about that, Alex? Because Zach Wheeler has just been – it seems like he's been one of the best pitchers in baseball to have not won a Cy Young. It seems like he's always been there.
It's criminal. It's really criminal that he has not won that Cy yet. Luckily, it seems like maybe he could this year. I'm actually this news is really surprising because it's something that we kind of already knew. When Zach Wheeler signed this contract last season, he kind of mentioned that he was going to be set for retirement, likely following this 3-year extension. So we kind of knew this last year. So the fact that it's making the rounds right now is really interesting. But yeah, he is hands down one of, I think, my favorite players. I think I'm going to go this far of all time. Zach Wheeler he's never cared about the numbers. He's never cared about the accolades. He's never cared about, even Matt Gelb detailed this in a piece recently, the same piece that was kind of this idea was plucked from. He is like a guy that he doesn't have some crazy routine. He's not insanely superstitious. He doesn't have this crazy diet. He doesn't do all this crazy preparation. He's just a dad. He's a guy that comes out every 5th day, shoves, goes home to his family, eats whatever he wants, and repeats that process every single week, right? He is truly a unicorn in that way, but it's also like it speaks to the difference between a pitcher and a thrower, or somebody that is so overtly metrically inclined, right? There's only so far those things are going to get you. Execution, confidence, maturity, and the mentality that baseball takes can get you even further. And Zach Wheeler is living proof of that. And I just think that he embodies exactly what I love about this sport is you can number watch as much as you want, but at the end of the day, it's all a gut check, right? And that is the coolest thing about this guy. So yeah, it's going to be really unfortunate to maybe see him retire at what could possibly be the top of his game. But I think this is a guy that would rather go out, at the top rather than try and sneak a few extra dollars in there and, risk, I guess, ruining what has been one of the greatest pitching peaks we've seen from a, I guess, 32-plus-year-old starting pitcher. I mean, this is what he has managed to do in the latter half of his career is unbelievable. And I don't think I've ever seen a better latter half of a career. You can point to anybody, I think the thing that rivals probably what Zach Wheeler's been doing so consistently over the last few years is, what was it, 37-year-old Justin Verlander winning the AL Cy. I think it was 37 or 36, but I think Zach Wheeler could conceivably do that as well over these next 3 years. So, yeah, I don't know. I've never seen a more consistent, more dominant, more prominent peak in the later half of a career than Zach Wheeler. And I think, honestly, when all is said and done, there may be a very convincing Hall of Fame case you could make here. And I think that would be it'll be a really fun thing to watch over these next few years. Yeah, he's unbelievable. And I'm very, very happy to be able to watch him every fifth day.
With Wheeler, we mentioned that in our chat about Hall of Fame status, him, DeGrom. It just seems like there's a bunch of guys there that maybe they were injured or they came on a little late to see how getting them into the Hall of Fame. But before we talk about another pitcher on the Phillies that's coming back to Miami, let's talk about another ace, and that's going back to Miami, Sandy Alcantara, who had a really great start last game and is now going up against the Phillies, a team he has seen plenty of times. I believe the Phillies are the team he's started the most games against. I don't know, Eli can fact check me there. But I want to go to Nate, talk about how do you believe Sandy's going to fare against the Phillies, and if he could get back on track, if he continue this upward trend he's been on for the last couple of starts against a team that knows him and a team that he also knows very well.
Well, it's definitely going to be a reality check compared to the Rockies and the Pirates. That is for sure. It's going to be quite the change in competition. And I'm really interested to see how Sandy does this. I mentioned last stream again, with how much he's been really implementing that curveball that he really hasn't used at all in his career. I think his previous peak, I said, was around 8 or 9, and that was in 2019. So he's really starting to implement this pitch a lot more. And with this Phillies lineup, man, they mash a lot. If they were facing the Phillies about a week ago and their offense was anemic, I would have been looking forward to this one a lot more. But they picked it up a little bit, so it's going to be a big test. Like you said, Dan, he's faced these guys a lot, especially that top of the order. So really interested to see how he mixes in that 12-6 and maybe builds off his other pitchers as well. Obviously, that heater is going to be a huge, just keeping them off balance is going to be big. So it's going to be a big test. I think if he gets through 5, I know I said that maybe this is the time he gets through 7, but maybe not against these Phillies. So just hoping to see a productive outing, no blow up, which has been really his kryptonite earlier this year, and just making that one good pitch instead of turning the outing around, maybe just get out of the outing on the good side of it.
Yeah, well, my famous angry Sandy tweet, that was after a start against the Phillies a few years ago. So he has a lot of experiences, good and bad, against this team. And in recent years, it's been more bad than good. Any way you slice it. So compared to the previous 2 teams that he faced, as a reminder, it was the Pirates, and then prior to that, it was the Rockies. And those are the get right games that you need to get right. We were talking prior to those starts about what do you do with this guy? Like, how can you? They have to put him on the Phantom IL, right? They have to do something to give him a break because he looked that lost when he was facing slightly better competition. Even though there were some measurable things that look really good in his most recent starts, it's still, to me, I think the quality competition is still pretty important. So, yeah, with that being said, that is why there's a lot riding. I mean, not necessarily on this one start, these next few starts, because it's this one, then it should be the Braves next, and then it should be the Diamondbacks after that. We're going to have a very good idea in terms of how close to back he is once he gets through that stretch.
To see that, I also want to go ahead and talk about with you, Eli, maybe Sandy's trade value and how you see it as of late. Because again, the rumors have been circulating since spring training about Sandy getting traded, and then yesterday with the huge blockbuster trade with Rafael Devers going to San Francisco Giants, it just seems put a maybe a fork in the road in terms of how pitchers are going to be valued, especially when that big of trade happening just in the middle of the season, where it just seems like Devers, the first offer that was there, maybe the Giants didn't really go to any other team. And you can give us a little bit more, maybe how even this trade might affect Sandy's value or the Marlins' overall trade market.
What I wanted to point out first is this is a rumor from Bob Nightingale that went out over the weekend, and that was very vague about how the Dodgers are one of the teams lurking for him. And if you read right below that, the paragraph below that, he also says the Dodgers aren't planning to use Shohei as a pitcher until after the All-Star break. And then it comes out a few hours later that Shohei is starting for the Dodgers, which is, with all due respect, to point out that Bob Nightingale has somewhat of a spotty track record when it comes to the legitimacy of his reports. So even though this was an interesting note tying them to a team that has a ton of rotation depth, but constantly those guys are getting injured, and then having another piece of his column be almost immediately refuted by what happened, it tells you that we're still pretty early in this process. Now, it is worth bringing up the fact that there's been now this huge blockbuster trade elsewhere in baseball, and that in my mind, a reason why I wasn't expecting Sandy to go anywhere until very close to the deadline is because he seems logically like one of the leading contenders to be their all-star representative. I didn't think they'd want anything to distract from that coming into the season. I figured that they would want to soak in all the benefits that comes with him pitching well and representing the Marlins.
Make Liam Hicks an all-star.
Let's do it. And as it turns out, he is not anywhere remotely close to all-star consideration. So in the team itself, there's been, even though given this recent upswing, we're at a point where they're going to be sellers no matter what, which means that it's all of a sudden, it's a little hazier in terms of when that timeline is that it could be moved. I wouldn't necessarily rule out something popping up very suddenly. Again, I'm sure it's going to be contingent on him having some of these quality outings against tougher competition that he hasn't had to this point. That's going to be a big step to convince teams to pay what Marlins feel that Sandy is worth. Ultimately, it comes down to that they have to be willing to extract talent in return that makes it worthwhile. And to me, that's still just a really complicated picture, considering the overall struggles and the fact that there's so much pressure on them to get this trade right if they're going to move forward with it.
Has anyone, sorry to kind of derail us here, but has anyone considered that, I know he's working back from injury, but the fact that Mel Stottlemyre Jr. is not with the Marlins anymore, and Sandy is struggling with his command the way he is, it feels a little bit more like, maybe there's something just technically that the Marlins are missing, because everything else is there, right? He hasn't lost any. I haven't been paying the closest of attention. He hasn't lost a tick in stuff. He hasn't lost. His delivery looks the same. He's not tipping. His velocity is similar. I know he was struggling with durability late into games early on, but I mean, I feel like, this is kind of selling low on a guy that regardless has a track record to, garner you a large package of prospects. But this really does feel like the wrong time to move on from him if I'm the Marlins. I don't know. It just feels like he's bound to go, like Jesus Luzardo, he's bound to go somewhere else and just be incredible. And that just, I don't know, that's gotta sting a little bit if you're the Marlins, especially an organization that was known for its pitching prowess, not so long ago.
Right. Yeah. With him, the complication is so much of it comes down to his command just being way off early in the year. And even though you're right, there is perhaps a different voice in his ear that could have stemmed that a lot earlier in the season than they've currently done. Maybe that does make a difference. It's tough to pick apart just because he has vocally been really supportive of the new pitching people. He has, when they wanted him to make alterations to his pitch mix and use his curveball more than he really ever has, he was on board for that. His arm slot is lower than it's ever been, and he hasn't necessarily fought back against that either. So he's been really open-minded in a way that has surprised me a little bit, considering that this was, until a couple of starts ago, was the worst start of his career. He should have felt empowered to speak out if he felt that he wasn't being put in a position to succeed. But he is as convincing as he could be. He has not put the blame on anybody but himself to get it turned around to this point.
And I think he went to the Davey Martinez school of it's only the players, never the coaches. But
right, yeah.
I just think something that we didn't really talk about earlier this year was not only Mel, but Sandy losing Jacob Stallings. I feel like that wasn't brought up enough. We knew how comfortable Sandy was pitching to Stallings, especially the pitch calling. Him just, like I said, just the overall level of comfortability Sandy had with him. Obviously, he had his best season ever with Stallings behind the plate. So I think it might have been taking him just a month or a month and a half to just get used to Nick Fortes knowing the pitches and being away from Stallings. So I think that now that Alex brings up, the loss of Mel, I think the loss of Stallings might hurt him a little bit as well.
And now we're bringing in Mr. Kevin Baral at the ballpark to give us a little bit of a press box report. What's he hearing from Clayton, and to give us a little bit more details in this 4-game set against the Phillies.
What's up, guys?
What up?
Hey, Kev.
I'm chilling. Sandy day. Big start for Sandy. Hope he builds off the previous two, especially the one against the Pirates. But overall, I mean, I would say vibes are pretty good. Phillies BP was impressive. Shorter than I thought it would be, but impressive.
Phillies BP was impressive.
Yeah.
Kevin, what did you hear from Clayton? I'm waiting for you to spill it. Spill it all.
Nothing of substance, I would say. He didn't note that, he isn't a big fan of when people ask, you're playing the Phillies, you're playing the Dodgers, the Mets. He says that they're all major league teams, all good major league teams, and he believes that they're going to have to play the same way they have all year. And he noted that they've been in games against some really good teams this year. So I found that to be an interesting comment from him. So, I think that was one of the bigger things that I guess I took away from the press conference. Like, all right, he's wide in a way that's pretty interesting. It's like, you're not going to, you're facing the Phillies, but you don't want to think about them as, the top of the NL East or the top of the division or of the National League in general. So I found that interesting. One other note was Sandy's 3 strikeouts away from tying Josh Johnson's record for most strikeouts in the franchise. So he could become second on the all-time list. Ricky Nolasco with 1,001 strikeouts. So should be. I'm assuming, hopefully, if everything goes well, Sandy has more than 4 strikeouts. He'd be currently second on that list by the end of the month.
What else have you seen there, Kevin? With the Marlins and 4 games as well. Just how do you think this pitching matchup's going to go on for this 4 games? If Sandy coming in today, how would you like this entire 4-game set?
Yeah, Clayton was asked about how available the guys are, especially after the Washington series where he had the rain delay in the first one. It was essentially a bullpen game in the second one, and then obviously Yuri only able to go 4 innings in the third one. He says the bullpen's they're almost all available. They're all good to go. You also have, Freddie Tarnick, who didn't pitch too much in his first ever save, which I found pretty cool for him at any level. And he should be available. My assumption is he'll piggyback someone maybe tomorrow with Cal maybe potentially going out there. Seems like that's been the case a lot where they piggyback Cal with a long reliever or a long man in this case. So, yeah, they feel like they're in a good position when it comes to their starting pitching. I'll be interested to see if Sandy's in a groove. I want to say that no Marlins pitcher's gone into the 7th this year. Maybe that changes with Sandy. I would say if he's in a groove against the Phillies, he's looking good. Pitch count is at a reasonable rate in the Marlins standards. I'd be curious to see if maybe Clayton says let's get Sandy a couple more than just 6 innings or 5 innings and see if he can save up the bullpen for tomorrow with Callan on.
Anything with an injury report, Kevin?
Nothing too crazy. The one Braxton started throwing. That was a first. So first time he's been throwing since Tommy John. The other one that finally came up in the injury report for something notable was Andrew Nardi. He's also starting to throw. So those two are on throwing programs. So obviously Braxton not coming back this year. Nardi, maybe right at the end of the season he comes back at some point. I don't know. That one's been I haven't heard anything from that one at all. He's around. He's been here. And so, yeah, that's the latest there. And Max Meyer also starting to throw.
Why is Dane hitting 9th?
That's a great question that was not asked. And I don't know. I mean, he's been hitting down there.
Why do we send both?
What do we pay you for, Kevin?
Yeah. I was late to the news of the lineup release, but the fact that he just had an amazing he's just an amazing overall for an extended stretch.
So, he was hitting down there the whole series too. So
right, yeah. I mean,
it's a sticky situation there. If he's hitting 9th tomorrow, then I was gonna ask, but I didn't know how to word it. So But I did ask about Dane, what's been working. Clayton obviously noted that it's just been a lot of really good stuff, a lot of contact, getting gap to gap power, power in general with the homer in Washington, and he noted just how weird of a swing path Dane has. It's more of a flat swing, one of the flatter ones in the league. It's not really like he's trying to elevate the ball. It's more just like, let's put it in play. Let's see what happens. And that's what's been working out for him. He's having an awesome month. And we were talking about it in the chat. If he keeps this up, there's a really good shot he could be the Marlins representative in the All-Star game at this point. The recent one was listing maybe Gus would be the guy for the Marlins. But I think the voting just came out. Hunter Goodman's going to get in there for the Rockies at some point because it's the Rockies. And then you have Will Smith, who hasn't – and then Carson Kelly's having an awesome season for the Cubs. So – I don't really see a fit for Augustin in there unless he comes in as a DH in the game. But I feel like it'll be like Myers, Cabrera, or Sanchi as that representative. And those are the three names around the press box that have been going around the most.
And lastly, Kevin, before we let you go, Luzardo coming back to Miami. He starts tomorrow. Just talk to us a little bit from your interview with Luzardo and how he feels making his return.
Yeah, it was a funny story how he found out about the trade. He was going to go on a fishing trip with Jake Eater, of all people, and he gets the call that he's getting traded to the Phillies. He said he was extremely shocked to find out that it was the Phillies that traded for him. Obviously, in division rival, you don't usually make those type of trades, and the Marlins swung a deal to get Starlin Cobb and Marion Boyd. Right now, trade isn't looking the greatest, but time will only tell. So he's excited to be back. He said he's going to have a lot of family. Still keeps in touch with a lot of guys. Went out with a couple of them for breakfast today, he said. So he's happy to be back. First time he's ever pitching at Lone Depot Park as an opposing player. So that should be fun to watch tomorrow against Cal Quantrill. And for him, you got to hope for him it's a quick start so he can make it to watch the Panthers game, at least whatever's left of it. 6:10, the Marlins moved up the start time for that too.
Hey, that's new. That's new two-way player, Marion Boyd, you're talking about. Put some respect on his name now.
Yeah.
Don't forget.
Really quickly, Kevin, can you recap how Kaba and those guys are doing before we let you go?
Well, Starlin Cobb is hurt, and Marion Boyd has been a lot better. So we'll see how it goes with them too. But yeah, Cobb is hurt. Still, I think 60 days should be coming back soon, or at least getting some rehab games in soon. So we'll see how that goes.
All right, that's going to do it for Kevin in this lovely press box report. You can follow Kevin on Twitter for everything he has going on. And now let's go ahead and talk a little bit more about this series against the Phillies. And before press box report, we were talking about Sandy. I want to go ahead and talk about the opposing pitcher he's going to be seeing, Mick Abel. Before we get to Alex Carr on that, Eli, can you tell us a little bit about Mick Abel? Because Adrian Lorenzo, former scouting international director, came in and mentioned how during that draft, he was one of the ones that was trying to get for Mick Abel in that draft, I believe so, right?
It was specifically that Scott Aldred, who was with their pitching coordinator on the minor league side from, I think, 2018 until through last year, was somebody that was at least in the room and the one that spoke out in favor of Abel in a spot where, as he explains in the clip, would have been appeared at like a huge reach. It was a kind of guy where the way that things were lining up, it would have been somebody that you hope would fall to them in their early second round pick, and then you would overslot him from there. But it would have been a really bold pick to make him at number 3 overall, given what we knew at the time about those college pitchers, both Meyer and especially Asa Lacy in there. So it was an interesting tidbit though, because it's frustrating that this factor about wanting to win in a shorter amount of time and letting that dictate who you would pick early in the first round. I find that maddening, because usually what happens is the talent available near the very top of the board. If you think you're picking one of the very best players available in the class, whether they're high school or not, like those guys, they get to the majors pretty quickly if they're actually as good as you think they're going to be. And to default to the college guys available just because they were older was that's a pretty, I don't like that look in hindsight, and that's a little disappointing that they would use that as a factor to narrow their decision-making process in there. And I think it's a little bit reactionary to say that Abel definitely would have been a better pick than Max, because Max, you rewind a couple months ago and Max was looking awesome in the big leagues, in the rotation right there. He's still in a complicated spot. We'll see what he looks like when he comes back from the IL, which based on the update from Kevin today, sometime next month, he'll be back in rejoining this rotation. He should, health permitting, have a full second half of the season to really get settled in as a starter. He's made some interesting adjustments. It is an interesting plot twist here that Abel was even under consideration. For people that don't remember, in 2020, the Marlins drafted pitcher. It was the all pitcher draft class. It also is one, we're going to have an article on this soon, because all 6 of those guys have a decent chance of making it to the majors if they haven't already, even the ones that are still not quite there yet. Zach McCambley is in AAA. Dax Fulton is doing pretty well in AA, and he's on the 40-man roster, and all the other guys have already made it to the big leagues right there. So even though there's still a question in terms of if any individual of those guys actually turns into even an above average big leaguer, the fact that to potentially go 6 for 6 in terms of actually picking out guys that have some sort of role would be a decent accomplishment for this group.
And Alex, can you tell us a little bit about how Mick Abel has transitioned now to the major leagues? I know he had a really great debut. He had 9 strikeouts. And then you look at his past start against the Cubs, gave up 3 home runs. But how can you tell us a little bit about his just starting his major league career?
Yeah, he last year was really, really challenging for Mick. And I think the biggest thing, I'm going to talk about this again, which is so interesting. The biggest thing that's shifted for him is mentality. And I think that being around guys like Zach Wheeler and Aaron Nola, these guys that are huge into this, just go out there and let your stuff talk for you kind of mentality. Caleb Cotham is kind of the same way too. So you're surrounded by all of these voices that are kind of saying, just throw your game, right? Throw your stuff. And let that talk for you, let that speak for you. And I think that that's really, really helped him transition here. That I think is probably the biggest shift we've seen from him this season. I think he is now learning how to balance that with obviously some growing pains in his last start. It was a little hittable, but he's learning how to balance that at this point to where, sometimes you want to avoid the strike zone a little bit more. It's not always that imperative that you get strike one. You don't want to just be coming out here throwing meatballs. But primarily, we're seeing in the major leagues the best command that we've seen from him in 3 years. I mean, he's taken a whole new step this year on the whole, but especially at the major league level. He waited, I think it was 11 2/3 innings before walking a guy in his major league career. And as a 23-year-old, 22-year-old starting pitcher, that's a really difficult thing to do. So he has just been really, really, really impressive. As far as the whole Max Meyer and Mick Abel debate goes, they're very different pitchers, but Max was on a quicker trajectory. It would not have made sense for the Marlins to select Mick Abel. It just wouldn't have. So I at least in my opinion, right? And obviously nobody could have foreseen a rebuild on the rebuild kind of coming down the pipeline for the Marlins. But I think that, both of these guys are talented pitchers that have had some bumps in the road. I think Marlins fans should just be happy that Asa Lacy was not on the board by the time that their pick was up, because that's would rough. Have been disastrous. But I think that when it comes to Mick, the big thing for him, especially in this forthcoming start, is just going to be to, let his stuff talk, but also to take advantage of a team that is pretty free swinging. I think it's also going to be really interesting to see how some of these guys like, Kyle Stowers, Gus Ramirez, I hope Liam Hicks is going to be in these lineups because I really like him. But, Dane Myers, some of these guys who have really shown some ability to make contact with the baseball, they are not dangerous hitters. So it is going to be really interesting to see how Mick navigates this lineup. However, I think that you're going to see a lot of, prioritizing getting some ground contact on some guys that, are known to swing the bat a little bit more often. But either way, it's going to be a really fun test. This is kind of in the middle for him. He first faced, the Pirates, and then obviously you get a huge shift from first he faced, was it the Rockies that he made his debut against? The first game that he tossed, I think was maybe the Pirates. Pirates first. Second game was
Pirates and then Toronto.
Toronto. So Toronto was also, all things considered, solid start. Obviously, Chicago, one of the best offenses in all of baseball. That was a big step up for him, and to get out of that game, only having allowed those 3 home runs, even though they were all solo shots, was a decent bit of work. This is now intermediary, right? I think the Marlins lineup is probably better than the Pirates because that lineup is, it's quite bad. And so I think it's going to be really interesting to see how he handles some, relatively hot batted young hitters here. It's going to be really, really cool to watch.
And talking about one former top prospect, I want to go to Nate to talk about current Marlins top prospect. This is also one of the bigger news today for the Marlins. That's Thomas White going to Double-A. Long awaited. We felt like this is a guy who probably could have started the year in Double-A, but had a repeat high Beloit. Nate, talk to us about what this means, Thomas White going to Double-A, and how you think he's going to fare in that environment.
Long overdue. I'll start with that. Long overdue for Thomas White. Second pick, the Marlins after Noble in 2023. He's been awesome. Everything and more. Going to be probably a top 30 prospect in all of baseball, consensusly at the end of this season. He's been incredible. What really stuck out to me about Thomas, obviously he's throwing upper 90s from the left side with wipeout off-speed stuff. But I was really concerned about his walk rates last year, and even earlier this year. Walked 11 guys in April, sits in May, and then in 2 starts in June, he's walked 0. So when that guy's on, all in the zone, his command's on, there's really no way to get to him. It's pretty much impossible. So I think that's going to continue in Double-A. Him and Robbie Selling's going to be very fun to watch, who also deserves a call up of his own. But a long overdue for Thomas, and I'm excited for him. He's not going to be too long until you see him in Miami. So I think excited is the only word I can use.
Mm-hmm. Eli, with Thomas White, again, we have him as our number 1 ranked prospect. How do you think, again, with Double-A, and by this time next year, is he in the majors?
Yes. In fact, entering this year, I was playing around with the possibility that he might sneak up at the very, 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 very end of this year. But I think it's very safe to say that first half of next year, health permitting. Ultimately, that's the big question. Never really know with pitchers so far. And also entering this year, I was assuming he was going to be assigned to Double-A from the beginning. He was so consistently good there at High A last season. I don't know what he had left to prove. He was slowed down a little bit by this finger issue where he missed 2 scheduled starts earlier this year. That's why his innings have been down recently. So that just slowed him down a little bit. And that's what I mean, where it's hard to anticipate the injuries, even the little stuff that doesn't actually portend any sort of long-term ramifications there. As long as he's healthy, he's just such a well-rounded pitcher. It's on top of the pitchability and the raw stuff, he's just impressively physically filled out for a guy that's still just 20 years old. The contrast between him and Noble Meyer, for example, in that regard is jarring. The fact that Thomas he's kind of even for a guy that was drafted less than 2 years ago, he's developed in all sorts of aspects at this point, where I think he's going to be pretty successful here so far. But that's going to be really fun to watch down the stretch of this season. It's good to see him progressing this well, where the Marlins historically these last few years, they just haven't had a great success rate with early round draft picks. So he wasn't technically the first round pick, but he was a first round talent that they selected slightly after the first round for them to get it right with him. And for his trajectory has just been so smooth. It's unusual, and knock on wood that it continues, because it's pretty rare for a pitcher to perform so consistently well and just get a little bit better as he moves up the chain. So he continues to solidify himself as the top pitching prospect in this organization, the top overall prospect. And it's just a question, if people want to get mad for always looking for excuses to get mad about things, Marlins fans probably want to see him even higher on national lists and on MLB overall lists. And I don't blame them, because he is right up there with one of the very best developing pitchers in all of baseball.
He has the stuff to do so. Let's go ahead and look at the lineups for tonight's matchup against the Phillies. I want to go ahead and talk about the Phillies lineup first. We have Alex Carr here. I was looking at the lineup, and batting ninth, I want to talk a little bit of Brandon Marsh, because coming off the IL, I saw one of your tweets and how great he's been performing. Well, what is it about Brandon Marsh that how well he's been performing? Kind of like exactly like Dane Myers, both guys who've been performing well out of late, but they're hitting ninth in that center field position.
Yeah, Brandon had a weird start to the year. I think he was starting to feel the pressure a little bit of uh, kind of being the answer in center field. He is a notoriously hot starter, but he is also a notoriously streaky player. So it felt like he kind of reversed things this year by having a dreadful, almost unplayable, not almost, an unplayable start to the season. But then kind of finding his way to a much better, time at the plate of late. So he's been quite good, actually. And I think the big guy to talk about in this lineup currently is Otto Kemp. Otto Kemp has been a spark plug is kind of the wrong term here. He has been probably the Phillies' most consistent RBI guy since he, made his way to the majors. He's primarily hitting, for I guess for one base hits, right? He's primarily slapping singles, but he's making contact. I am not going to sit here and tell you that he's making smart swing decisions. He is fishing quite often outside of the zone. He's working himself into a hole at the plate. But his two-strike approach has actually been really solid. And he's a guy that he will strike out, and he has kind of shown that willingness. But he also has been hitting for substantial power at the AAA level. And he's making it really tough to, put him any lower in the lineup. So that's kind of why you see him leapfrogging Brandon Marsh here. But yeah, it's also worth mentioning Bryson Stott has been just terrible at the plate of late. It's really unfortunate. He is definitely a guy with real talent and with a great eye. He works some outstanding at-bats. I think yesterday he saw 31 pitches across his 4 at-bats. And I love you, the Navy bot. But I think that, he's been really not doing it at the plate, which is really disappointing because, he provides some great speed on the base paths for the Phillies and obviously Gold Glove defense at second base. But it's been a really rough go for him. And then right below him, you see Rafael Marchand, who's also kind of been an auto out, but is also a very patient hitter. So 2 really interesting guys. That whole bottom 4 is really fascinating for the Phillies. And then I don't think I need to say much about that top 4. They are the same guys that they've been. Nick Castellanos has drastically improved his strikeout rate this season. I think he's the 4th lowest strikeout rate on the team, which is otherworldly to go from where he was in 2023 to be where he is now. He is obviously not hitting for as much power, but grand slam yesterday, so that's exciting. Alec Boehm has gotten right back to where he was last season. He has been outstanding as well, mostly hitting singles, but hitting the ball hard. Home run for him yesterday. Kyle Schwarber is Kyle Schwarber. Kyle Schwarber also famously loves hitting against Sandy Alcantara. So that is going to be very interesting. And then Trey has been outstanding. Trey Turner has been spectacular for the Phillies this year. And he is really starting to, what he's lacking in power numbers, he's really making up for. And he's started kind of swiping more bags again. And he is making a ton of contact. So that's been really exciting to watch. So yeah, the only guy in here that I expect much more out of is Max Kepler, who has been hot of late, but not doing it for the Phillies in left field. So I would expect, especially as we kind of draw closer to the trade deadline here, I'd expect you're probably going to see him start taking a bit more of a backseat. And you're probably going to see, I don't know, you might see Brandon Marsh start taking more of a front seat in left field. He has been really good of late. I think Max Kepler has a lot still to prove, even though he's hitting the ball really hard, but he's always kind of been this peripheral darling that nobody has ever really been able to figure out. So yeah, it's an interesting lineup tonight, obviously very much missing Bryce Harper. And JT Realmuto has also been really hot of late, and he's taken a seat tonight too. So Marlins getting a little bit of a not first team crack here, but I still think that, the Phillies love hitting against Sandy. So I think that this will be a really interesting bout nonetheless.
Mm-hmm. let's go ahead and look at this Marlins lineup before we get into prediction time. And one more question I wanted to ask Alex Carr. But Nate, talk to us about this lineup. We mentioned Brandon Marsh, 9th hitter, center field for the Phillies. The Marlins have their own. Dane Myers, 9th hitter, center field. Talk to us about this lineup, what you're seeing, and maybe answer the Connor Norby question. We've got a lot in the chat, just his struggles as of late as well.
Yeah, again, on paper, this lineup is pretty sexy, as I said last stream. A lot up and down. You see a lot of good faces. I mean, it really it's fun. And on paper, that I said this lineup should be putting up runs. I expect the Marlins to keep the train from Washington rolling. But yeah, man, Connor Norby, he really has been quite disappointing this season. Had that hot stretch around, I think, middle of May, right when Kyle Stowers was really on fire. And it's been all downhill since, to be honest with you. His play discipline, no other way to say, has been pretty rough. His swing, his K rate's been poor. Chase percentage, all that has been just really bad. Same thing with his buddy Kyle Stowers as well, which has been talked about for a while. But both those guys, their swing decisions aren't too good. They swing too much. And when they're not making contact, it's not too pretty. So Connor Norby, it's just a matter of time, I think, for him to break out of it. And it was just so funny. I think Kyle brought it up on the broadcast a couple weeks ago. It's like right when Connor started to figure it out, that's when everything fell apart for him. And that's Major League Baseball for you. So that's just what it is. I'm not sure how he's going to figure it out, but it's just simply cutting back on the strikeouts and maybe just making better swing decisions, which is much easier said than done. But Alex brought him up a couple times. Liam Hicks, man, he's been fantastic, continues to be fantastic. He is the anti-Connor Norby. That guy for a rookie has been awesome at the plate, fantastic discipline. Something I found interesting is when he swings at the first pitch of an at-bat, I think his OPS is right around 800. So that guy is really just, he sees red, and when he gets it, he puts a swing on it. So he's been awesome towards the bottom of that order. And yeah, the top's going to be the top. Otto Lopez, who now I believe leads the team in WAR, probably mostly for defense, but that's interesting to see that he is hitting third once again. But yeah, up and down, like I said, I think sexy is a good term for it.
Mm-hmm. Eli, well, with this lineup, how do you see them defensively? Maybe you can elaborate a little more on Xavier Edwards, how he's performing defensively, and maybe what else you're seeing, especially maybe Liam Hicks and him catching Sandy.
It's been pleasantly surprising, X at second base. There was, of course, those back-to-back plays against the Rays that saved the game in a way that stood out. But then even more recently, you've been seeing it too, where he is he fits there a lot better than he does at short. And so the thing is, at this point, it feels he might be stuck there. That I don't know if there really is much of a backup plan if he's not a confident second baseman. But so far, he rates just fine over there. I think DRS has him at +1 or +2 so far in this relatively small sample. Of course, it takes away a lot of the challenging throws that he's had to make when he was at shortstop, but overall just really comfortable there in a way that's important. And now it's still, the question is, how does the bat turn around? Because even the bat has been inconsistent since he came back from the IL. He had a couple really good games, but still the combination of that and the lack of base running too, I think he's now gone over a month without stealing a single base, which is a huge reason why he's in the leadoff spot in the first place, and why I don't know how much longer you can justify keeping him there in this lineup. I mentioned Dane batting 9th and Edwards batting 1st. You would think, just based on performance, that they would completely flip that around to get Dane as many plate appearances as possible, and X continuing to play him almost every day, but not quite as many until he's actually making more of an impact offensively. But in terms of defense with him there, makes more sense. Eric Wagman has become somewhat of a target for his defense. It feels like it's been getting sloppier as the year has gone on. He made that mistake must have been the final game of that Nats series that almost cost him the game, where he fields the ball and then he inexplicably just drops it as he's running to first. It somehow slips out of his glove as he takes off, and everybody was safe. It was just one of those where there are different degrees of mistakes you can make defensively. And that was one where it's just, I don't know how it happened, but it was also could have been extremely costly and game changing in that moment. His hands at first base are just not good, and his athleticism there isn't good. The issue is with Liam Hicks, that Liam Hicks in a small sample is also a really poor defensive first baseman, also in part due to his experience there, because of his lack of size, where Hicks doesn't even have the catch radius that Wagaman has. That's the one positive thing about Wagaman, is that he takes up space. He can get to a lot of different balls. So even though that's a position that is on all the way in the bottom of the defensive spectrum, it's still noticeable when you struggle that much at it. And first base, I would say that over these last few weeks, that's been the one area most of all that it has stood out, how the Marlins still don't have a solution there. So Davison De Los Santos, I think he's about to rejoin AAA Jacksonville. If he starts hitting, then maybe we see him in the big leagues in the not too distant future. It's not like there's an urgency to address first base defense during a season like this. But in terms of one thing that's really driving some people crazy watching this team, that's one area where there's somebody in the pipeline that can help in that very niche area. There's potentially help coming in the not too distant future at first base.
Mm-hmm. And before we get into prediction time, I want to talk to Alex Carr a little bit really quickly about the bullpen. I believe the last time we spoke to you on stream, Jose Alvarado wasn't placed on the restricted list. He got suspended. Just how is the bullpen adjusting to without having Jose Alvarado, and how the whole maybe the bullpen is adjusting to and how they're playing since then?
It's hard to say. I can tell you that there's been a lot of addition by subtraction in Jose Ruiz and Carlos Hernandez, who actually was just claimed off waivers by the Tigers today. Jose Ruiz, now of Atlanta Braves fame, who has allowed, I think, like 7 runs in his first, few games with the Braves. He's been terrible. And Carlos Hernandez was also quite bad. I can't tell you that they've been bouncing back incredibly well. Oh, my dog would love to tell you the same thing too. But what I can say is these back 3 in Jordan Romano and Matt Strom and Orion Kerkering have been primarily, they've been overused a lot. I will just, we've got 2 dogs barking in the back. They've been overused, and they really need some help. And I think the Phillies will probably be making a move sooner rather than later. As soon as teams feel comfortable dealing from their major league bullpens, I think you can very much bet on the Phillies making some kind of move, and they will absolutely be adding 1, if not 2, major back-end pieces to this bullpen. Somebody who's kind of stepped up in their stead has been maybe a surprising name to some Marlins fans to see in this bullpen. It's Taijuan Walker. Taijuan has actually been quite all right out of the bullpen. I won't say he's been locked down. He's been all right. And Joe Ross has also started to take on a bit more of a role. So has Max Lazar. Tanner Banks, up until yesterday, had been pretty lights out as well. So Phillies are kind of in suss out what you have mode at the moment. And this is the right time to do it. Obviously, Michael Mercado is here now. They were planning on bringing Seth Johnson back up as soon as he is able to be brought back up. At least I'm assuming that is the plan. But they're kind of in see what you have mode with this bullpen right now. And that's going to be very telling as to the gravity of how they add to it come the trade deadline. It's something that I think I would watch out for if I were a Marlins fan. The Phillies have a first base prospect named Keaton Anthony that I think is very Peter Bendix coded, as the kids are saying these days. He won the minor league Gold Glove last season at first base. He is a remarkable hitter, former non-drafted signee actually, but went undrafted because he was kind of caught up in a bit of a gambling scandal at school at Iowa. But nothing came of that, quite clearly. But this is a guy who, at the minor league level, at the AAA level, but primarily at the AA level as well, has done nothing but hit. And this season, he has really substantiated that he has gap power, that he has game power that can still be tapped into. But primarily, he is a Gold Glove level defender at first base. And I think that if how the Rays run things is any indication, that feels very Peter Bendix coded to me, at least at a platoon level, and seems like an answer for the Marlins right now. I can't divulge whether or not I've heard anything, in regards to that particular prospect and the Marlins, but he just feels like a great fit. And I know the Marlins have, maybe some names that could either transition to the bullpen or guys in the major league bullpen right now that could be of interest to the Phillies. So that feels like something to keep an eye on as things we near the trade deadline. They're also trade partners. The Marlins and Phillies know each other's systems well at this point. And even though this most recent trade might still weigh heavy on Peter Bendix's heart, perhaps he's ready to dip back into the pool and see if there's any more interesting prospects to be had. So I'm definitely looking at that as the Marlins try to figure out their first base situation. Also, feels of note that Anthony is a left-handed hitter. Or no, I might be lying there. Anthony's a right-handed hitter. I can't remember, and I don't know why I'm blanking on it at this current moment in time. But I'm sure somebody could tell me that's near a computer. Anywho, feels
Right-handed
like
hitter.
Feels like he is right-handed hitter. Thank you very much. He's a right-handed hitter, but could platoon well with some kind of. Is Matt Mervis still in the system? I'm sure if he's around, maybe they could hang out. But it feels like a prospect of note to keep an eye on if you're a Marlins fan, and you see the Phillies and Marlins matching up in any potential deals.
Could see that happening. We'll see what happens as we're inching closer to the trade deadline, as we are now inching closer to the end of the stream. Let's go ahead and do some prediction time. Eli, let's get that brand new video going.
This is prediction time.
I think we're going to win a lot of games, a lot more games than you think we're going to win this year.
All right, Bruce. They did this past weekend. They won a lot more games than everybody except for Kevin thought they were going to win this weekend. And so that has tightened up things at the very top of the leaderboard and make Kevin in a more respectable spot among our staffers right there. I myself still having a very rough year where I was picking the Marlins to win too many series as of late and then finally got fed up with it and lost faith and missed an opportunity to pick up some grounds this past weekend. But thank you to all our super subs who make their predictions all season long. We keep them organized here. And of course, our staffers, our live stream guests included as well on the leaderboard. We have both Kevin and Isaac Azut at the ballpark today. So they sent in their quick prediction time video.
Alrighty, Marlins, Phillies, 4-game set. I'm taking the Phillies, taking 3 out of 4, and Jesus Luzardo is my series MVP.
I think that the Marlins actually salvage a split here, and I'm going to go with Agustin Ramirez, series MVP, 3 lefties. Let's go.
All right, back to you, Eli.
Yes, keep in mind, it's an even number of games. The Marlins haven't played a 4-game series since, if I have this right, since opening weekends. I think that was the first series of the year, was the only other time so far that they've had a 4-game set, which means it opens up a new universe of prediction possibilities. We've not made very many series split predictions on the course of the show this year, and things have finally shifted in an exciting way. You can predict the exciting split.
Isaac saying 3 lefties, let's go, as if it's a positive thing when it comes to the Marlins is my highlight of this stream thus far. Because, man, as somebody who loves fantasy baseball, anytime a lefty is pitching against the Marlins, I am slamming that stream button every single time. So I wish him luck.
You'll see here how prediction time goes. And first up, Mr. Nate.
Yeah, just like Eli said, it's the first 4-gamer. It feels like forever. Usually in these series, a split is the most common pick, and I need points really bad, so I'm gonna go away from that. I think the Phillies will take 3 out of 4. Good factor behind that. Palm Beach County legend Trey Turner been a lot better in the month of June. Reason to be.
I am in the same boat as Nate. I really need points if I want to get my 3rd prediction time winner trophy. I'm going to go Philly sweep. I think there's way too many great pitchers going up against the Marlins, having to face Ranger Suarez, Christopher Sanchez, Zach Wheeler, and Nick Abel. Well, my MVP will be Kyle Schwarber. He has a home run in every game this series. Eli.
I will go with the series split right here. That is my advice from years past, even though we haven't gotten much practice so far this season. Damn, series MVP. Over the course of a longer series, you definitely want to go with a position player that's actually in there every day. I'll go with Otto Lopez. He continues to bat this high in the lineup and get all these plate appearances, and I like his chances of coming through. He's been overall trending in the right direction as the year has gone on. I think Otto is going to be critical in at least one of these wins as the Marlins split down the middle with the Phillies.
And our guest, Mr. Alex Carr.
I'm going to go Phillies take 3 out of 4. I think maybe tonight is the best one that the Marlins have the chance at winning. I think that, Sandy come out and shove, but I think more so, Mick Abel is still a young guy, right? He's still getting adjusted to the major league level. Coming off of his proverbial worst start thus far. So I think the Phillies probably win all of these left-handed starter games, but I think tonight is the one that I will leave up to competition. And then as far as series MVP, I think I will go with Nick Castellanos. I never get to pick him during these Marlins-Phillies series, and I think that a hometown series is always a good one. So I'll go with Nick Castellanos for fun.
All right, you heard it here with our predictions, and that is going to do it for this stream for FOF Live, presented by About the Fans. For myself, Daniel, Eli, Nate, Alex Carr, Isaac, and Kevin. Have a great night. Go Fish.
Fish on First has partnered with About the Fans to launch a merchandise collection. Rep the FOF logo and more Marlins-inspired apparel. Find it all at aboutthefans.com. Enter coupon code FOF10 at checkout to get 10% off your order. FOF10 for a 10% discount.